Okay, well, then let's continue talking about vampires and not goblins nor dragons here. We have our second part to discuss about our city, our location, why it's important for your story, why it is a character in and of itself. Each city is going to have its own personality. I mean, as someone who lives in Ohio, I can tell you that Cleveland's mood is different than Columbus's mood, and both of those moods are different than Cincinnati's. Toledo, Akron, Canton, etc. Maybe even little old Sandusky. Which it said, if it wasn't for a cholera outbreak during its founding, might have been dysentery, I forget. What's the one you get from drinking corpse water? All the same. If it wasn't for that during the founding, Sandusky would probably have been larger than Cleveland, due to the fact it's on the bay and it's a naturally protected area. And so if you ever want to make up your own city, take a small one and give a what if. What if this little town was actually the big town of the area, of the state, or whatever? Or that the capital of Ohio was Cleveland and not Zanesville. Wait, isn't the capital of Ohio Columbus? Now. It wasn't always. So why do I bring that up, actually? Well, a segue, yes, naturally. I try to give you a good performance, a good, a flow of information. If I can give you some ideas to think about, that might prime your brains for what we're going to be discussing in this part. So instead of just reading out of the rulebook, what is a procedure? Doesn't even have to be the procedure. What is a procedure that I used to bring Cleveland into the world of darkness? Well, obviously, it's proximity. I've been to Cleveland many times. It's only an hour away. In fact, that backs up something that Heretic Trance posted a little bit earlier here. Ohio. You tell people something is X minutes outside of Cleveland, Columbus, or Cincinnati. You think that Cedar Point is better than Disney. You love Buckeye candies, the little peanut butter chocolates. If you've not had it, let me know and I'll see if I can arrange shipping them out to you. And you do not speak of Michigan. But she did throw a bone to Bane for Michigan as well, and there you go. So, there is a familiarity. It is actually the largest city. It is the largest city in the state. So, it makes it easy for a lot of shenaniganery to occur. Big population. And, so I just had a comfort level, and it was kind of an easier tier to present. But how could I get Cleveland into the world of darkness? What kind of cynicism or pessimism or conspiracy or leaning into history or the paranormal? What is there that I could bring into Vampire the Masquerade? And so beyond my familiarity, a little bit of research goes a long way. Now, it makes it easier if you do know the names of people or places. Those are good starting points. You can simply type in a search query of who founded whatever. Kragar, either you know or I'm sure you could research. Or heck, I could even do it real quick. How was Yuma, Arizona founded? Yuma was named after the Yuman Native Americans and founded as a river port. The port supplied outposts for the military and supported commerce just below the confluence of the Colorado and Gila rivers. Since prehistoric times, Yuma has been the safest site for crossing the Colorado River. There's a ton right in that one paragraph that you can lean into and you can have a lot of fun with. You know, if there's a river flowing, there's a lot of extra stuff. Formally incorporated as a city on April 7th, 1914. And as of the 2010 census, there was 93,064 people. That can support a pretty healthy population of the undead. So, you start with simple questions like that. Yeah, back when you could have a riverboat on it. And maybe, Kragar, maybe in your Yuma, there's like an old partially buried, or maybe even fully buried in the desert riverboat. But like the sands on the outside are kept there to keep people away. But that is actually where Elysium is held, where the vampires get together for court or other things, is an old buried like riverboat in the desert. And wouldn't that be cool? And you can take shelter there from the sun because it's buried under the sands or whatever. Cleveland is a city of paradoxes. It is a sprawling metropolis and a small town. It is a city that pioneered in social reforms of all kinds, and yet it is a bastion of conservatism. Founded and developed by a small group of Protestants from the New England and Middle Atlantic states, it is peopled by members of over 50 ethnic groups representing every part of the world and many of the world's religions. Going back to 800 BC, Adana and Hopewell mound builders populate the region that will become Northeast Ohio. Circa 1200, the Native American Mississippian culture with Mesoamerican influence residing in the region becomes increasingly urbanized and agricultural. Native Americans of the region begin residing year-round in large fortified villages, growing maize, beans, and squash, and building multifamily longhouses. The Amérique Septentrionale map is published by Nicholas Sanson, the first map to adequately show Lake Erie and accurately chart the southern shore. The Iroquois attack the Erie Indians and Cat Nation, inflicting severe losses of life and land. Several groups of the Ottawa Nation move into the Maumee and Sandusky Bay areas, continuing their participation in the fur trade of northern Ohio. Moravian missionaries establish Pilgera, a Native American missionary settlement in the Cuyahoga Valley. And here we are, the 22nd of July, 1796. Moses Cleveland and his survey party arrive. This was the founding of Cleveland. This was something that was played into in the Red Deemer, with the fireworks and such. And we can see, as time passes, the population of Cleveland was 7 in 1800. So just 223 years ago, There was a whole 7 people living in Cleveland. Just 3 years later, they got mail. Have a good night, Craigar. I'm sure you all, for your own states, cities, counties, countries, because not all of you are in the US, you can find timelines like this. And you can weave imagination, conspiracy, you can weave these elements of the supernatural through it. Who was responsible for this or that? Was there a vampire during Oliver Hazard Perry's Battle of Lake Erie? If not on the ship, was there one that was watching? By the way, Canadians, if it means anything to you, while we did win, there is an international peace monument at Put-in Bay. It's a big tower such that we may never fight again. And you can see Walk in the Water, the first steamship on Lake Erie, serves Cleveland. And you can go through all of this. There was a Shaker colony, a utopian Shaker colony. The Ohio and Erie Canal, all of the railroads. Look at this. Only 30 years later, Cleveland's population has swelled to over 1,000 people. And by the way, we spell Cleveland the way that we do because of a printing a printing error and or an abbreviation, so that it's not quite as tough for typesetters. Funny how little things like that add up. All it took was maybe one person at a newspaper with a little bit of influence, and the entire name of a city can change. And you wonder why vampires might wield such power in mortal society over time. Anyway, would you take a look at this? Lots to look at, lots to wonder about. Of course, there are many people who immigrated here from the old world. You know, would arrive on the East Coast and travel into the Midwest, into the frontier, as the nation continued to grow. Germania, the community's first German language newspaper, is published. There is a very strong Germanic and even a Polish community in Cleveland. And the vampires in Red Deemer got a little bit of that. Not as much as I had hoped that they'd get, but again, a lot was left on the table. Sorry, Raven, but I'll reveal more one day. But I wanted to touch on the Polish influence in Cleveland, and so I did through one of the vampires. A lot of this here, Lake Erie, shipping, this was all brought up over the course of only a 3-session story. And there's also some notable moments from early settlement. And as you look through a record like this, lots of bootlegging as well, Heretic. Bootlegging and Underground Railroad activity. And so you read through this, and this is an entire cast of characters that could become vampires, already were vampires, or were influenced by vampires. And so you come down here. Wait a minute. Bradstreet's disaster, which occurred 1.7 miles west of Rocky River on October 18th and 19th, 1764, is one of the most notable events in the pre-settlement history of Cleveland. In late summer 1764, British Colonel John Bradstreet, renowned as the hero of Fort Frontenac, proceeded from Fort Niagara to Fort Detroit. Detroit, who goes there? With 2,300 British regulars, American provincials, and Indians. What? What happened? What happened during Bradstreet's disaster? Stopovers on this westward trek included the Cuyahoga and Rocky Rivers on August 18th and 19th. Initially part of a three-pronged assault to put down Pontiac's rebellion, after Indian quiescence, the mission became one of reinforcement, exploration, retrieval of captives, challenge of hostile groups, and peacemaking. On the return to Fort Niagara from an extended encampment in Sandusky. What? Sandusky, interesting. Bradstreet's party found the otherwise safe shelter of Rocky River too treacherous for their 46-long bateau to navigate because of darkness. Instead, on October 18th, under a moonless sky, they rowed their 60 boats and 9 canoes, laden with 1,500 troops, to a swale near Rocky River, now the park, Bradstreet's Landing. When an unexpected surge wave suddenly struck, the small ship fleet was inundated by high water. These waves effectively incapacitated 25 boats and severely damaged many others. 3 days were required for repair before further travel could be undertaken, and the shortage of boats necessitated that a portion of the party proceed over land. Bad weather severely hampered the progress of the boats, while shortages of food and supplies caused much hardship for the overland party. Although rumors of marchers perishing exist, only a single fatality was confirmed in the struggle to return to Fort Niagara. One person died. Confirmed. Interesting. Raven, if you're still here, are you? I don't know if any of my other players from that game are here either, but if so, I have a question for you. But here we have, we can go into all sorts of stuff. Here we have a fun little referential article for Cleveland Moses. The concept of city planning. Oh, the question was for Raven as to if she remembers as a player who the Prince of Cleveland was. William Coates. The Connecticut Land Company and the Western Reserve. Did you know Ohio was once part of Long, Connecticut? And that Connecticut was Connecticut into the Midwest? Interesting. This area is also called the Firelands for a particular reason. It's okay, Canada gets their comeuppance later in the War of 1812. Who else do we have? The Connecticut Land Company, John Cutler Covert, Samuel Kozan. That's a weird name. Western Reserve pioneer that settled the Euclid Avenue to Wade Park area. Was born in New Jersey, the son of Samuel Jr. and Jane McIlrath Kozad. He and his family arrived in the Western Reserve in 1806 to settle land purchased by his father at $1 an acre. Huh. Oh, went all the way to the cemetery. Later purchased 100 acres in East Cleveland. Doane Corners. Nearest neighbor was Job Doane, who kept a tavern at the corner of Euclid. Cozad turned the woods, undergrowth, and marsh into farmland and built a log cabin in the area of Wade Park Lagoon. Huh. He and Mary Condit were married in 1816, and they had a son, Newell, born in 1830. Pioneer farming was backbreaking work, and predators roamed the area, making it necessary to guard their domesticated animals. Later in life, Newell recalled how they hunted bear near the campus of Western Reserve University. As the area grew in population, land values increased, and Cozad built a frame house on the site of Severance Hall. Huh. Interesting. For any of you who watched the Red Deemer, I hope you're seeing I hope you're seeing what I've been at least I hope you're seeing at least what I am hinting at. You know, what could have happened, or maybe just something along the lines of it's a rumor and they just accepted and went along with it. But you can read about all sorts of interesting things if you look through some of the records. This old tavern that's been around forever, a society of collectors, huh? Very interesting. This gets into just an overview of the city. What happened in a more modern timeline? How did it develop into the city that we know? What is the Emerald Necklace? That sounds like a mysterious object, maybe an object of power. What is the Emerald Necklace? It's mystical, even. But you can go through and read about all of this. Get ideas. Twist them, or fully embrace them. Was there some big fire? What caused the fire? Who? Why? Because there's the why, and then there's the why. You might find all of this to be fascinating. You might go, well, all right, I'm aware of Cleveland. It's a big city. But did you know about all of this? Did you know about the... was it in this one? No, it was in the city planning section. That's next. You know, we go Hamlet. You know, at one time it had 7 people. It was a hamlet. Hamlet's a village without a church. A village is a hamlet with a church. At least in the old definitions. Eventually it got a courthouse. Eventually it got a bank. A bank, right? There's so much here that you could read about in the development. And you go, ah, yes. Over time, this is how the vampires settled in. They came in with the old Germanic groups. Why did I make the sheriff Nosferatu? Nosferatu, at least to me, is a very Germanic line. And so if we have a lot of Germans coming in, those who parasitized the Germans would also follow. Why did I make the villain a Tremere? Now, this is a question open for any of you. Derek, Coffee, anyone else out there. Why would I have made the not sheriff a Tremere? What about the Tremere could indicate a presence of them in the city? And if you all don't know, I'll say, but figured I'd open it up to those who might want to flex a little bit. So we have steam line shipping, we have railroads, we have the canal that was built. Newspapers were getting going. There's an interesting kind of rivalry. Ohio City is kind of within Cleveland, but it's Ohio City. But not Cleveland, but it's Cleveland, but it's Ohio City. Have fun reading about that. Enjoy. Who would carve out a small city within a city? Now, in this case, it's actually a human, proper, legal distinction. But who was behind it? Wink. So, we have all kinds of fun references. And we even come over here. Again, the canal. And even concepts of city planning were developed here. Like most American cities, Cleveland began as a speculative venture in real estate. Conceived as the capital of New Connecticut, the city was laid out in 1796 by surveyors with the original Moses Cleveland expedition. The Platte, a faithful reproduction of a New England town, with its characteristic commons, failed to treat either river or lakefront as a public amenity. By the way, there's a bit of it's not a scandal. Burke Lakefront Airport is considered to be underutilized for its position. After 1830, the Ohio and Erie Canal, which operated from the east bank of the river, much to the disadvantage of rival Ohio City on the west, provided a regular outlet for the region's goods, and harbor improvements promoted shipping. Roads entering the city from south and east gradually insinuated themselves into the orthogonal street plan, and several radiating diagonals, including Euclid, Prospect, and Kinsman Streets, were cut through. Residences crept out along the east-west axis as the center town increasingly was given over to retail trade. Property values were inflated along the river and on the lakefront, where industrial development was centered. Gradually, and sometimes reluctantly, city government responded to the demand for more public services. During the first half of the 19th century, the city assumed responsibility for planking and lighting the streets, installing sidewalks and culverts, and providing a water supply and gasworks. Zoning was unknown, except for a ban on wooden structures in the business district in the interest of fire protection. A critical event in Cleveland's evolution from overgrown village to mature city occurred in 1851 when railroads entered the city, occupying valuable waterfront properties and bringing factories and warehouses in their wake. I made sure to feature an old factory. Was the other... city planning was confined to mundane engineering necessities until the rise of progressivism brought a new and elevated conception of the possibilities of municipal life. Under Mayor Tom L. Johnson, the city gradually assumed responsibility for many services that had previously been left to the private sector. It also incurred a burdensome debt. The innovation that best signified the city's progressive spirit was the group plan, calling for the organization of Cleveland's public buildings around a mall similar to that then under construction in Washington, D.C. We come over here to... where was the... It does touch on Shaker Heights, one of the suburbs. that was built as Cleveland was. It started out as a Shaker community, a Shaker utopia. If you're not familiar with the Shakers, look them up. They're very interesting. Also, they didn't like buttons, from what I understand. But it started out as a Shaker colony, and it became Shaker Heights. And there's a lot of heights that are on east side suburbs. That was played into by the title of our second episode, by the way. Building on the site of a utopian Shaker community that had disbanded in 1889, the Van Swearingen brothers developed a suburb where middle-class values were protected through strict controls on land use, deeds, and architecture, setting aside some of the most desirable tracts for schools and churches and country clubs. They organized neighborhoods around elementary schools. Commerce was confined to the periphery, most notably Shaker Square. Industry was excluded altogether. This went into then the investment into the Nickel Plate Road, and then we get to the Supreme Court. The suburban movement seemed, for the sake of city as well as suburb, to render even more imperative the establishment of a planning profession rooted in the neutral principles of science. One of those principles was zoning, and a case emanating from a Cleveland suburb served as the cornerstone of all zoning laws in the U.S. In Village of Euclid v. Ambler Realty Company, the Supreme Court upheld zoning as an appropriate exercise of the state police power. Cleveland's first zoning ordinance was adopted in 1929. During the 1930s, government addressed itself increasingly to urban problems, particularly housing. And you go, oh, there's so much here. That, again, it could have been, puppets from the shadows. It could have been, we're gonna, a vampire's gonna get this small village involved in a Supreme Court to influence zoning laws for the entire country. Because what better way to district your cities than to have than to have codifications for it? Aha! It all makes sense now. Dun dun dun. This is how the vampires break us up. This is how the vampires corral us as kine, as cattle. They're the ones behind zoning laws. And there's so much more that's here that you can look into as well. Oh, yeah. They are a real thing, Heretic. They are perhaps an infamous in their origin. Of course, we have the Cuyahoga River being so polluted it burnt, which is something that I reflected in the title of our third session together. Though it was with a little bit more cheer and optimism, albeit an environmental disaster all the same. So there's a lot that I wanted to touch on and try to put into a way that, history might echo, and we can touch on the personalities of the past and see where the manipulations of vampires can come into play. As suddenly we go from like a camp, a small little like lakeside forested, outpost of 7 people, pardon me, to the largest city in Ohio, with a big mix of everything. Faith and residents and industry of many different kinds, transportation. The Drew Carey Show, arts and entertainment, The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which was featured in the Red Deemer, is in Cleveland. There's a nice Hard Rock cafe there as well. So if you go through, and if you're looking for other ways that you want to split up your vampire territories, do this for wherever you want to run a game of VtM. If you don't know, because maybe you're not from there, but you think it would be cool, just look at, I have Cleveland districts as a search. Okay, so we can see maps already made for you of council districts. So people who are voted to Cleveland City Council, just neighborhoods in Cleveland. What are the different neighborhoods? Because neighborhoods coalesce around different things. Not always just this street to this street. It could be an ethnic or a religious makeup. It could be just, this is the commercial neighborhood or the industrial, whatever. Congressional districts. What else is here? You could do this by, you could do a heat map of population density. And where it's hotter, where there's more density, there's going to be more vampires. You can do it by maps of income. Does your Ventru only hobnob with the snobs? Look at a map of where the commercial district is in the city you want to run, or the one that you're building from the ground up. And that's where the Ventrus are. Look at crime. Look at crime maps. You can find this kind of data. Where are the most crimes committed? Which kind of crimes? And are they because of vampiric activity and rabble-rousing? Are they just because it's that type of a neighborhood? Is it a failure of public infrastructure or something else? That's something that you can develop. You can help decide. An urban tree canopy assessment. I don't know, do your gangrels hang out in trees? Do you want to run other World of Darkness entities? Mages? Or werewolves? Where would the werewolves live in or around Cleveland? Or if not, where would the gangrel go to just get away from the big city vampires? Go on a walk. Oh, well, how about the Cleveland Metro Parks? Of course, the Emerald Necklace. A part of the city planning that has an entire ring. By the way, there's a really cool castle. An entire ring, lots of waterfalls. Surely there's caves and forests otherwise where someone might be able to take refuge. Lots of out-of-the-way places, by the way, in the shoreline development and the big rocks. The Emerald Necklace. Nature reserves. Escape routes all the way through and around the city. Who goes walking through the parks at night? People might disappear. This is how the vampires did it, of course. And these even go out to the suburbs. Out to the heights. University Heights and Shaker Heights and all the heights to show you. For we have such heights to show you. The Cleveland Metro Parks extends beyond Cleveland. And are wonderful corridors for maintenance vehicles, for park rangers, for all kinds of things to move and infiltrate or seek shelter. Heretic Trance. By that, you mean Elysium, right? Elysium in Cleveland was in the West Side Market. You might go, well, what would a vampire want with this? Shelter? A place to move? As long as you can bury yourself under a little bit of topsoil, you can survive the daylight and then wake up at night when hopefully no one's around and make a hasty escape. Look at all the bridges to hide under. All the rail cars that can take vampires into and out of the city. All of the personal craft or the big commercial freighters. Just like I talked about with Kragar, how a vampire can hide in the back of a salt truck and be protected from the sun, and who's going to stop and look in the back of a salt truck? It's a salt truck. How much can go into and out of the city? And that was reflected by the ore ship that had a not ore. So if you take a look around, there's all kinds of fun stuff you can bring together. Now, I'm a little curious if either Coffee or Derek are still hanging out. And if not, that is fine. But overall, it was something fun that leaned into a lot of the city, past, present, maybe a bit of a future. And I was able to give a whirlwind tour, especially with the help of the introduction video that showcased a lot of the areas of the city where things could take place, where there could be things that did in fact lurk in the dark. Let me bring something up real quick. Okay, we won't need the music for this. But let me get this sized to what we need. So I can showcase a couple of the elements here to you all. We'll get the volume down. There we go. And so what do we have in the intro? If I'm aiming to immerse you all in the world of darkness, this appears quickly. Our two mortal mascots have been targeted, drained of their blood, embraced into the Camarilla, and have come back as vampires. They look similar, but there are some stark differences. The official art. Oh, what is this? The streets, city planning, things growing and connected. And of course it rains, because it does. The flats. We zoom into a place. There's a dead woman. Maybe it's a nightmare. Maybe she was just knocked out from an attempted robbery or something. Welcome to Cleveland. Oh, she's not dead. Her eyes were covered and are uncovered. And we go from an official, organized welcome to Cleveland sign into something distorted. A chaotic mess. Welcome to Cleveland. We're exiting out onto the streets. Down the alleyways, it's still raining. And then we try and find shelter from the rain and the sun. And there we had our vampire. We introduce our coterie. These are human beings that lived in Cleveland. Their blood was drained. And they became vampires. This is the process of being embraced unfolding before you. This is who they became and why after we established the scene. And what was this again? What is it that the coterie was? The coterie were pawns. The coterie were pawns. Oh, beautiful there's beautiful architecture, like Art Deco. Oh, ports and ships and bridges. Lots of water. Lots of light as well. I don't know what that weird thing was. Oh, yeah. They're in a stadium? Oh, yeah. Stadium and fireworks? Oh, yeah. Oh, that was odd. Yeah, we know Cleveland for sports. And all, you know, and it's very patriotic, and there's the fireworks celebrating the events, and the flats are lit up, and the downtown is lit up. Lots of light. What was that thing with the long head? Why were the roses burning? Like they were fireworks. And the thing with the long head looked like a big shipping freighter. These are the elements of the world of darkness you see for only a second if you do. Out of the corner of your eye. Amid the familiarity. There's a statue again. There's a big statue again. What was that? Oh, cool. Art Deco. Beautiful cathedral. Oh, Cleveland Clinic. Man, wouldn't you know? There's a Cleveland Clinic in Dubai. That's right. The Cleveland Clinic in Dubai, the Middle East, where supposedly the Gehenna War is taking place. Now, surely under the auspices of a hospital, let alone as an NGO, a hospital couldn't arrange for biological samples to be shipped from Cleveland to Dubai in the Middle East. Surely. Let alone be a center for blood and all kinds of other things. Cleveland has a big industry in medicine and treating people. Man, isn't that convenient when you can control something that can effectively zip you up in a body bag, put a do not disturb sticker on it, and ship you over to the Middle East? Probably no questions asked, with the manipulations that would come with being an elder. Man, Cleveland Clinic in Dubai. Fascinating stuff, huh? Playhouse Square? We gotta have something for the Toreador. I see you out there. The casino. There's some very nice cemetery. Was that a Nosferatu? In the salt mines, 2,000 feet below Lake Erie? Huh. Well then. By the way, I regret that should have been a water ripple. Instead of a fade out, that should have been a water ripple. Regrets. Everyone has them when you run a game. That's my only regret. Clearly. And so it's there. Now, can you catch on to it? Maybe, here and there. Does it reinforce the elements presented in the story? Hopefully so. But otherwise, this is just it's a nice welcome wagon to you all. Into the world of darkness. And I hope that this explains how your city can be a character. The mood of it. The rain. The shipping. All of the opportunities for your vampires to parkour. To hunt. To lurk. To make money. To do all kinds of things. It's both a playground and a cemetery for their final deaths. It's a place of intrigue and history. And it's easy to maybe if you're like, well, I don't necessarily know the rules, but man, I know a city that I would love to run some kind of dark supernatural game in. Start with your city. That is your main character. Right? That is what's providing a lot of the drama and the threats and opportunities. A lot of the places where things lurk. Just as the rule book was encouraging. And so that's what was going through my mind. Now, you might start differently. Or you might say, I don't want my game to take place in a real city. I have an idea for, I'm going to recreate, it's Gotham, but it's not Gotham. I'm going to recreate Metropolis, but it's not Metropolis. I'm going to recreate whatever. Or it's a completely original idea. You do some sort of a what if early on the geyser of Yellowstone was getting ready to go critical. And in order to bleed off the pressure from the super volcano or whatever that's causing it, a city was built around Yellowstone using the geyser as a source of hydroelectric or thermal power, as well as a water source, because every city needs water for the humans to drink and make more blood for the vampires to drink. And so you actually have a concept of Yellowstone City, a city sitting on a volcano. On if it wasn't for the fact that they in that time they bust the pipes down in there into the crust, and they are bleeding off steam and all this thermal energy to keep the ground from exploding, but providing tremendous electricity. A lot of everything is steam heated. There's pipes everywhere. It would almost be a modern day steampunk setting. You can have a Vampire the Masquerade game set in Yellowstone City or whatever you'd want to call it. I mean, maybe you'd come up with a better name than that, but to convey the idea. Right? How cool would that be? And you could have it be surrounded by woods and werewolves. You could have it be in the center of the idea was actually presented by a bunch of mages who didn't want to die in the explosion as per humans. And yet where there are humans, there are vampires. And so they made their way there. And you could have a big cross-sectional supernatural, because maybe it's also on a ley line. And that's why the volcano is threatening. And so now you have the mages leeching off this. You have the werewolves prowling the woods around the city. And then you have the vampires. And it's actually just it's a lot. But man, the price of electricity is cheap because the earth is providing a nearly unlimited sum of it. The werewolves have a stick up their ass about the industrialization, so they're upset. The vampires are always upset with each other and plotting and scheming and how to manipulate and control all the pipes that go between the buildings to bring the steam and or whatever electricity or something, or that go under the city. Perfect. Not all of them carry steam. They carry vampires. Go nuts and have fun in a fictional city or in one of your own. I guess I don't have Coffee or Derek anymore. I mean, if they're still around, then we can talk. But that was my spiel. That was my pitch, my encouragement to not just look at, okay, well, it's New York. I'm tired of it. Every show is based out of New York or L.A., including a Vampire Chronicle. It's set in both. Does that mean that they're bad? No. But you get what I'm saying. Like, everything is New York or L.A. Then go to Yuma. It has 90,000 people in it. Run a border town, Yuma, Arizona, Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle. Run a Yellowstone City fictional environment. Run a what if Zanesville continued to be the capital of Ohio and not Columbus. And so you actually run Zanesville by night because that's the capital of the state. And you can have some fun other what ifs and whys and answer those whys.